Welcome to this Assassin's Creed Valhalla review. I'm your host, KTB. This is a rapid spoken review without ads so as to save your time. Should you wish to watch at a more sedate pace, try setting the playback speed to 0.75. I've played 20 plus hours of AC Valhalla on PC, and this video contains no story spoilers and early to mid gameplay. With that out of the way, let us begin. AC Valhalla is the latest in the Assassin's Creed saga and the third game in the more open world RPG focused gameplay structure since AC Origins. For traditionalist fans of the series, there is more to love here than Odyssey, which I enjoyed greatly, and there is much to enjoy for relative newcomers like myself. First up, graphics. In an age of ray tracing and next-gen 4K consoles, AC Valhalla is a solid mid to upper tier looker. It won't win Miss World, but it's certainly scoring 8s. The world is rich with foliage features, environmental detail, and the colour palettes and composition varies from frozen Nordic mountains to the rolling plains of the forests of Dark Ages England. Colours go from the whites and stone grey of Arctic Northern European winter to the lush and verdant greens of southern England and the autumnal shades of its beautiful forests. Environments are detailed without being crowded, and you rarely feel that the world is empty. For those coming from AC Odyssey, you will find the lack of piercing Mediterranean blues, bright skies, and gleaming white marble pointed. This is a muddier, dirtier game, reflecting the marshes, muck, and yes, brown of Dark Ages England. Speaking of mud, textures far off are sometimes a little blurry, even at ultra detail. That's likely to maintain performance, which is excellent by the way, but it is noticeable on occasion. In terms of animation and movement, this is a mixed bag with a solid core. Traversal and combat are generally excellent, with Eivor the Viking sticking to environments, clasping, grasping, and leaping in believable ways that seem anchored to his surroundings. No mean feat when you consider the variety and scale of the world. Combat is generally quite smooth, with some great and brutal executions and limb hacking. Where there are flaws in combat, it's largely due to the camera. This is particularly pointed when sticking to enemies or moving focus between targets to the camera may swing wildly to orient itself. Ditto using special abilities. The camera can sometimes snap backward and forward in jarring ways. However, none of these are game-breaking or more than a minor annoyance, and generally combat looks very good. Dialogue with NPCs will vary. Models and animations are generally very good, with the usual AC level of detail on skin textures and layered clothing being present. Lip syncing, however, is sometimes off, and many people, particularly shop owners, seem overly animated and expressive for what they're actually doing or saying. Eivor, him or herself, also has some rather exaggerated movements in dialogue, rapidly closing his arms to denote anger or the like, which can seem unnatural or quirky. Again, nothing is immersion breaking, but some dialogue animations don't add to the immersion of the game overall, but animation is excellent. On to sound and music. Sound-wise, Valhalla is again solid without much outstanding and feels a little thin in the musical space. The ambient environment rustles, birds sing, brooks babble, and an occasional strain of Celtic sound can be heard on the wind. Combat sounds gritty, if a little light on occasion. The class of axes and breaking of shields is solid. There is variety, although not too wide, in NPC soldiers' voices and speeches. No arrows in knees here, but plenty of God-fearing soldiers ready to lop off your limbs for Jesus. The music texture and balance is interesting. On occasion, the music offers a soaring chord of Celtic or Viking vocal with mythical undertones that hint at the magic of the world beyond. But these moments are rare. The musical score is largely unobtrusive without the pounding drive of games like Hades, or the uplifting near-spiritual sound of even the menu music of something like AC Odyssey. Music here is ironically strong, but not heard enough. The balance appears to have gone in favour of light over intrusive, with occasional rises. There was scope for a lot more here with the Viking, Celtic, and monastic choir of influences of the period, and it would have been nice to hear more variety and a little more balls in some of the music. Not bad, just not there enough. Finally, and most importantly, onto gameplay. For all the criticism of cookie-cutter formula in Ubisoft games, Valhalla feels quite different to Odyssey, and much of this is positive. Gone are the constant mini-games that seem tangential to the story, and the grind is much reduced. Now, mini-missions and side quests are referred to as arcs, which feel much more connected to the story and the world. The endless fetch this and bring it to X are also replaced for the most part. Instead, you collect artifacts, involve yourself in the tussle between Saxons, Danes, and old religions versus the new. There are still collectibles marked as items or artifacts for cosmetic things like tattoos or hairstyles, and these can be ignored if you're not into the search that goes with them. Wealth is an interesting and important new mechanic. Collecting the wealth of a region allows you to upgrade your gear and your encampment. First on gear, gone are the hundreds of new items of Odyssey, and instead a much more limited set of items and combinations are available to you with the ability to upgrade these as you see fit. At first I missed the variety of Odyssey, but I soon learned to love finding a favourite weapon, upgrading it to level with me, and keeping it stuffed with runes relevant to my playstyle. Whilst Odyssey also let you upgrade weapons, this feels more bonded for some reason, perhaps due to the drastically lower number of items you can collect. There are choices around outfitting that are more impactful. Sword and shield, spear, hammer, or two-handed axes, etc. These again feel more natural and less like constant stat swapping as was the case with Odyssey. Another new and welcome mechanic is raiding. Here, a site, often a monastery or church with surrounding village, is identified on your travels or via other characters, and you have the option of sailing into it and starting a raid. This is like clearing Spartans or Athenians from a camp in Odyssey, and starts essentially a closed battle loop with loot. However, raids feel much more organic and fun, and opening the larger chests of church wealth require you to summon your party to help you push the lids off, etc. As you raise your towns, your Viking crew will set fire to the roofs and attack the guards with you. All great fun. There's a limited scope to upgrade your personal captain and crew, and it would have been nice to see a greater ability to customize, upgrade, and upskill the Vikings who come with you on raids. You can do this, but it feels a bit thin and underdeveloped. On to general gameplay in the loop. Movement is great and relatively smooth. Eivor feels heavier than Alexios, the antagonist of the previous game, and that's good. Generally, you have the same sense of being able to run and scale the world, and feedback and feel is right. Combat is initially a learning curve. It starts off feeling lighter than Odyssey and less impactful. Equally, the rhythm of combat is hard to get into at first. Stamina is built by hits and lost by dodging or being struck. Health no longer regenerates, and as such, you carry a finite number of rations or food parcels that can be used in and out of combat to keep you alive. Early on, the rhythm of dodge, parry, strike, and circle wasn't too fun. Then, when I began to understand the mechanics more, it clicked and was great. For the most part, I ignored the lock to target option that allows you to focus on a single opponent, as it made it difficult to switch between multiple adversaries. The combat in Valhalla is great once you've found your style and understand the game mechanics in relation to it. Give it time and it comes good. Finally, onto story and immersion. The characters of Valhalla seem more grounded and real, particularly the protagonist, and the slightly exaggerated and comical personas found in other recent AC titles. You do find yourself caring about Eivor and their immediate circumstances and family. I did, once once again get annoyed having to play the interim characters outside of the main story timeline. However, as the game opens out and more of the NPCs are introduced, you may find yourself drifting off. The story is interesting in its context, Vikings moving to England start a new settlement, if not in its execution. The world is fun to explore and be a part of, and is more often engaging than the mid-game story. This is less of a grind by a long shot, and upgrades to your skills and abilities are handled differently. Again, something to acclimatise to. Abilities are added via finding tomes of knowledge in the world and are used by expending adrenaline bars in combat. Skills are more passive and come in branches which are revealed as you select more options. Whilst this makes planning your character less easy at the outset, they can be reset at any time at no cost, so you aren't committed to one path or another if you discover something else you'd rather have taken. Having the skill tree and abilities hidden also removes the sense of grind and adds to revelation. It's less of I need 4 more levels to get to that than it is I wonder what happens if I unlock this. For me, an improvement. That said, the other perks around major skills in the tree are somewhat underwhelming, increasing range damage, stealth, sword or armor values, etc. Nice, but they feel like stepping stones to bigger things rather than achievements in their own right. Overall, AC Odyssey is worth buying on sale for $35 or less and is a strong, if not definitive addition to the AC franchise. Please let me know your thoughts below, like, comment and subscribe. And again, thank you for your time.